The Angry Marks Podcast Network is brought to you by WrestleWork, a social network to connect, create, and share everything about pro wrestling. Check it out today at WrestleWork.com.
You're listening to the SmackDown RunDown on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Welcome to another episode of the SmackDown Rundown here on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. Yes, it is I, the one and only Nikolai, and I am joined by Rob the Many.
It is Rob the Many, the asshole with opinions.
How are you doing tonight, Rob, and did you enjoy SmackDown this week?
I did. I enjoyed it. You know, it's kind of where they're still in England, so we still got a little bit of kind of like the Monday night crowd, although like as we noted before, some of the audio gets played around on SmackDown, but it still was an interesting show. There was a lot of matches tonight, somewhat to the detriment of like the actual quality of the matches, but you know, there was some interesting takeaways from tonight's SmackDown.
Yeah, we had 7 matches on the show. Actually, more than I thought it was going to be. I expected maybe 5 or 6, but yeah, we got 7 of them. A couple of them were really quick. We'll get to those in a minute real quick. I don't know. Normally, the shows in the UK for Raw and SmackDown, usually the second or third week after WrestleMania, is always packed with excitement. If you guys remember me saying this last week on the SmackDown Rundown, I was saying I couldn't wait to see the shows from London, England. I don't know about you, but Raw totally bored the hell out of me. And you will always hear me say SmackDown is better than Raw, and that is the case here. Yet it still didn't have that level of excitement that I'm used to having in watching these UK show episodes.
Booking-wise, SmackDown was more of a coherent story. There were some puzzling decisions on Raw. Real quick, I just kind of want to get your opinion on some of these because I wrote it down. Some of the interesting booking decisions. One of them was the sudden and erratic change of Fandango back to babyface, which they carried over to tonight. The sudden babyface turn of, or at least the hint of a babyface turn of Kane. The burial of the tag team champions. Randy Orton beat him by himself. And then there was the weird random feeding wins to Naomi for 3 weeks straight, only to not have her win the Battle Royal and give it to Paige for the hometown pop, and then have her turn heel. And then just the really, I mean, there was like a couple other puzzling decisions that I just really didn't understand. I was just interested to hear your take on that.
Well, when it comes to Paige winning the Battle Royal and not Naomi, and Fandango's supposed face turn, I blame those two just solely being in the UK, and WWE knows that the UK is going to cheer for Paige, and of course she's going to win, but you know, they really royally screwed Naomi and basically turned her heel by attacking the hometown hero just for her to get a future Divas title match. It was just the wrong way to go. They shouldn't have had Paige win in the first place. Should have had it down to Naomi, Cameron, and Alicia Fox or Natalya or something like that. At least Naomi and Natalya. That way you could have some sort of competitiveness at the end. But to have Paige win in her hometown and Naomi to attack her, and Nikki's still a heel, Naomi looks like a heel. It was a bad booking choice all around. Fandango didn't really have a face turn. I think they just know that the UK crowd loves Fandangoing, so they did it really just for that. And it carried over into SmackDown, but I don't see anything coming out of this back in the States for Fandango.
Yeah, and don't forget the most important confusing booking situation coming out of Raw was a repeat of the finger poke of doom, or is this what we termed the self-beating of Kane? They even referenced the finger poke of doom, yet they still did it. And you know what's puzzling for me, Nikolai, and frustrating for me, is I listen to a lot of podcasts, and not a single podcast has really gone out of their way to kind of criticize WWE for this, which I think sticks out as a major double standard.
The finger poke of doom was an entirely different story in itself because it was all a ruse for everybody. The thing with Kane was, let's just put it out there, stupid to see this go down, and really, it was really a waste of a segment, and we have no idea where Kane's allegiance is going to lie. So I really don't understand what's going to go on with that, and I have no further opinion. And then you talk about Cesaro and Tyson Kidd. Well, we'll get to that at the end of the show. But let's start with SmackDown talk. And real quick, it started with John Cena on SmackDown, which is always a rarity in itself. But, it's good to see that Cena is back on SmackDown every now and then, as I've mentioned before. And he was talking about the Open Challenge for the United States Championship and briefly talked about the Russian chain match and explained the rules, which is the same rules as a leather strap match, the same rules as a Texas bull rope match, same rules as a regular strap match, whatever. You have to touch all four corners. It's just the length of weapon in between the two wrestlers. Whatever. Anyway, he went back to the U.S. Open Challenge. Cesaro and Kidd came out, did not want to participate in the challenge, and I guess they just wanted to drop some facts on John Cena, really, for no reason. Only for Daniel Bryan to come out and talk about champions in WWE, which was nice to see all four champions in one ring, I guess.
Again, they set up a tag match to be the main event. The only interesting part is they're all technically champs right now. I guess, although we didn't really know it at the time this was recorded, but we definitely knew by tonight that Bryan has been pulled for further performances in England, so this might be the last match we see of Bryan for some time.
Well, definitely the last time the UK is going to see him, because he's already back in the States, and they want him to rest up because of his neck and everything. They're taking all the precautions that they can with him, because if you remember, at this time, last year, Daniel Bryan was a champion, and he had a hurt neck then, but it wasn't as serious until like a couple of months later. It was around this time before he had the surgery, maybe 3 weeks after this time of year, and he was a champion then, so I think they're just trying to keep precautions with him, which is why we've seen him in tag team matches lately.
I hope so, man. I hope so.
Yeah, me too, and I hope he is okay, because it's never good to see anybody with a neck injury, let alone a popular superstar. Speaking of popular superstars, Bray Wyatt, which now they're touting this as a rare in-ring action appearance from him. I don't see how rare it is, but he had a match against R-Truth. I think that story writes itself.
Wait, I thought Barrett wrestled Miz and then R-Truth wrestled Bray Wyatt.
No, on TV it was Bray Wyatt versus R-Truth first. Yeah. Bray Wyatt wrestled R-Truth, beat him like very, very quickly, and then Barrett came out to interrupt the Miz. Yeah, like Bray Wyatt had a match. We knew that it wasn't gonna. We knew he was gonna win against R-Truth. Nothing against him, but it's just the writing's on the wall. And then the Miz is in the ring blabbing on about how he made Mizdow and Summer Rae. Bad News Barrett, who got a major pop on Raw, still got a major pop on SmackDown, and was the face here, and everybody's hero. Bad News Barrett was everybody's hero when he hit The Miz with the bullhammer 15 seconds after the bell rang.
Was it just me, or was the audio more subdued than the crowd reactions seemed to be? It looked like the crowd went bonkers, but then the audio didn't quite match like how they reacted on Raw.
I didn't really notice much of the crowd reaction this week on SmackDown, as I kind of watched it with a quick eye. But it's always going to be some sort of situation like that on SmackDown.
It may be because technically Barrett's a heel, so maybe on SmackDown they wanted to
not in the UK.
Well, I know, but maybe WWE wanted to kind of keep the cheers to well, we're in England, so he got a decent pop considering he's a heel, but we're not going to like make it seem like he's like a conquering hero. Let's put it this way, they dialed the audio back from where it seemed to be, just from watching the crowd reaction and stuff like that.
Well, you want to talk about weird booking choices. I don't know whose idea this was, but when Barrett came out and interrupted The Miz, he got a huge pop, whether it was sweetened or not, and still sounded and looked like it. Then he turns heel and says he's going to crush the Yes movement, which everybody knows that no matter what crowd you're in, everybody loves Daniel Bryan. So he didn't really get much of a reaction off of that. But then he hits the bullhammer on Miz in 15 seconds, and he's already cheered again. So
yeah, this was like one of the really only hiccup as far as like writing or booking wise. Like I wasn't really clear on exactly why they did this, because here's a thing to think about. So Barrett has basically beat The Miz in 15 seconds. So that means that really decent back and forth match that Miz and Mizdow have had on the past two Raws basically makes Mizdow look like a joke, right?
Honestly, I think Damien Mizdow is a joke, but not Damien Sandow. I never really liked the Mizdow gimmick, although I like the reaction he gets. But speaking of, we had a backstage segment with Mizdow and Summer Rae. The Miz showed up, wanted a rematch, called it the win a fluke on Raw, and apparently they're going to have a rematch on Monday Night Raw, and the winner will earn the Miz brand. That means the Miz's music, his theme song, his wardrobe, his name, all likeness. And first of all, why isn't this on pay-per-view? Second of all, why is this on Raw? Third of all, why is this a stipulation? And he should just go back to being Sandow. Since he quit and left The Miz, why is he still imitating or taking The Miz's name?
But this is something I forgot to hit on about the puzzling booking of this past week's Raw. This being bumped down to basically a Raw feud. I thought for sure they were going to say, Extreme Rules, but then when they said Raw, I was just flabbergasted. I was really, really confused. I guess this is just a free TV feud, which means the question why one of the more well-built programs for Mania has now been regulated so quickly to nothingness. And the rest of the feuds, quote unquote, are getting fed to us yet again on another pay-per-view. Very puzzling booking decision there.
Very. And we mentioned last week on the show that this really should have been a feud for the pay-per-view, and yet they didn't give it to us. Like when the match first came about, we said, why isn't this saved for the pay-per-view? And then Mizdow got the win, so now they're 1-1. I'm like, alright, well, they're gonna have a blow-off at the pay-per-view. Nope. Still on Raw.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I guess they just didn't have any faith in it, or I guess they felt like most of the build was to kind of do the moment at Mania, and then kind of just make it a mid-card feud to kind of fill time on Raw, I guess.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't understand this feud at all after WrestleMania, because I think they dropped the ball with this one, really.
Well, next up we got Sheamus versus Neville, mostly because Sheamus attacked Neville. They had a really good match, solid. It was probably the longest match of SmackDown, except for maybe the main event. But I don't think it was quite to the level of Neville versus Rollins or Neville versus Ziggler. And Nikolai, I'm starting to get concerned. I mean, when Neville can't even beat Sheamus straight up, who's coming back from his own rehab, rehabbing character and like an actual physical rehab. I mean, yes, technically Sheamus is also a former world champion. Everybody that he's lost to has either been a current or former world champion. And technically he didn't win. He didn't lose tonight. He didn't win either. And I just don't understand why they couldn't just give him another win on SmackDown. And, kind of give him give people who want to see Neville win could tune into SmackDown, and people and keep feeding him legitimate stars to job to on Raw to kind of build his character up. I get that, but I really don't understand this booking tonight, because I really don't feel like having a back and forth match with Sheamus only for Sheamus to kind of get himself disqualified doesn't really help Neville a whole lot.
No, it definitely doesn't, because Neville just debuted on the main roster a couple of weeks ago. He got his first win on Raw, and then his first one-on-one win on Raw over Curtis Axel, and then the next week he loses to Seth Rollins. He wins on his debut on SmackDown against Curtis Axel, loses on Raw to Ziggler, and then has a match with Sheamus where he gets thrown on the announce table, which is an automatic disqualification now, apparently. So this is his big week in WWE, because he's in his home country of the UK, in England, and he loses to Ziggler on Raw and gets his ass beat on SmackDown.
I would say, I don't want to be pessimistic, man, but it's not looking good. It looks like, Vince McMahon, his fetish for giant people is coming in to kind of kill this guy's momentum.
Exactly, but let's not take away from the match. This was a damn good match, really good back and forth between Neville and Sheamus. Definitely go back and watch it just to see some of the things that Neville can do, especially first of all, on Raw, he scaled the barricade and then did a jumping 450 splash off the top of the barricade on the floor. Then on SmackDown, he gets on the middle ropes, not the top rope, the middle ropes, and does a corkscrew 450 splash.
Don't forget he also did a standing moonsault.
Well, that's true, but it's incorrectly called that, as Michael Cole doesn't know the name of moves. It's actually a standing shooting star splash.
Yeah,
because
that's
Neville,
right, yeah.
Neville's not backflipping backwards; he's backflipping forwards.
Correct. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, my head just kind of pictured a moonsault because I heard Cole say it, so I just assumed that maybe Cole might have gotten one right one time. So I missed the move. I do apologize for everybody out there. I make mistakes every once in a while too. It's not that I don't like Neville's work. It's just that I worry whether this plan of having him be really competitive and showing really great athletic ability is going to be enough to get this kid over, because casual fans are oohing and ahhing, don't get me wrong, but a lot of those casual fans, kids and stuff like that, they don't know that, I fought a good fight, but I lost, still matters. Adults get it. We get it, okay, that's just as good as a win. I don't think, kids and, some of the more casual fans quite take losses quite that way. And, losses can really hurt a career. Just look at Miz. A one-time world champion for 6 months, main event at WrestleMania, and now he's feuding on Raw with a guy who dresses like him. That's how losing too much could really hurt someone's career.
Well, Jack Swagger would be another example of the Miz, but we go back to Neville, and I can understand what the story that they're telling, and of course, you going against Ziggler, that was a really, really good match, and Ziggler won clean. The problem I have with that is, post-match, he was trying to help him up, and I wish they would have gone with the actual full handshake before Sheamus attacked him. I thought that was a little too early. And then you have him go against Sheamus on SmackDown, which I thought was, I don't know, it just felt too soon for me. especially in the UK.
It felt like a lot of like the things that they set up on Raw kind of fed into SmackDown. I kind of like that a little bit. That like the things that kind of left you your head scratching. It seemed like they at least like explained that people required like a match tonight. They also did that with the Divas as well, which we'll get to later. And Dolph did bail Neville out here when Sheamus continued attacking him after he got disqualified. And, Dolph kind of chased off Sheamus. So it looks like it's going to be Sheamus versus Dolph at Extreme Rules. I'm sure there will be some kind of stipulation because it is Extreme Rules.
It is. Oh, it is, because Ziggler wanted a fight, and Sheamus told him to kiss me arse. So, obviously, Ziggler just thought that, was just his response, and Sheamus said, no, I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean that literally. At Extreme Rules, you and I are going to compete in a kiss me arse match. Let that soak in, folks.
Give me a second here. Let me get in touch with my Killer Kev. No buys!
Fuck it, fail, moving on. Nobody cares about this match. A kiss me arse match?
So lame.
Really?
It's just...
Like, the last one that the last kiss my ass match that anybody probably would have cared about would have been Billy Gunn and Rikishi.
Wow. That's quite some time
I went there. Whatever.
Let's try to shake this one off. The next match was the New Day versus the Matadors. This was pretty quick.
Yeah, it was a quick match.
The New Day haven't finished though. I mean, basically Big E is going to hit his finisher while Kofi kind of spikes them. Guess that's their finish now.
Yeah,
it looks cooler than I can describe it.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened with this gimmick. I mean, they were clearly getting booed on Raw. We talked about them getting booed last week, and here, like, some of the crowd was chanting New Day sucks, and another part of the crowd was clapping along with them, like dancing and having a good time, and some of them were saying New Day sucks. I don't know.
Maybe it's one of those England things, like, because they're trending heel now. Now they're going to be baby faces in England for like a week, and then maybe next week they'll go back to trying to reestablish the heel turn, or maybe they weren't hinting that they were turning heel, or WWE just decided to give up and just keep them in a gray area.
This episode is producing a lot of I don't knows from me. A Lex Luger sized I don't know. That's how this SmackDown came across for me. Just thinking about anything just makes me say I don't know.
Which, like I said, like, I felt bad because we said, like, it was a decent SmackDown, but, like, the more, like, I kind of take a look at, like, the results and everything, I kind of left here scratching my head again.
Right. So, as we talked about a while ago with Fandango, he dumped Rosa Mendez on Raw and brought back his old theme song, the Cha-Cha La La, whatever it's called. And, of course, the crowd ate it up. They went nuts for it, and they were all fandangoing. And I think it was a really good moment on Raw. And on SmackDown, it fell flat.
They did it a little bit. Not quite to the level that they did it on Raw. This would have been a day later. So, I mean maybe.
True. But it's just that, well, let's just throw this out there now. He had a match with Adam Rose. It was a nothing match. And
poor Adam Rose.
I don't think that this match was really necessary.
No, apparently it's just because these two guys were thrown on the European tour. Because, I mean, these guys haven't gotten TV time in, like, months. And then randomly they're on Raw and SmackDown back to back. I mean, this felt like basically because they came on the tour, they get TV time.
Well, I think that they should save this match for Superstars or main event, because this match here, actually, to me, it took away from the show, and it took away from time that the main event could have had. But before we get to the main event, let's actually talk about the Divas, which had a much longer match than Adam Rose and Fandango. I'd say it was 3 times as long.
Here's what's puzzling, Nick. Me and you noticed that, Cameron hinted at turning heel a few weeks ago, and everybody woke up Monday when she DDT'd both Natty and Alicia Fox and was like, "Oh, where's this heel turn coming from?" And I hate calling other podcasts out, but I'm like, dude, you guys are falling asleep at the wheel. I mean, she's been hinting at being a heel for weeks now.
She's been heel for months. It's just that she hasn't been on TV to show it.
Correct. But, I mean, from the time she kind of started introducing some of her bitchiness in the backstage vignettes that she was kind of thrown into when people were kind of like, why is she all of a sudden on Raw? And people were kind of asking questions why she always kind of seemed to be in the background. I saw it coming then. And then, on last week's SmackDown, she was pretty much heel. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I guess it takes planting 2 DDTs on people for you to be considered officially a heel.
True, and being in a battle royal on Monday Night Raw is not really gonna showcase that.
Oh wait, that reminds me, Nikolai. Can I get Rob? You called it. I told you that would be garbage match.
Oh, well, I think that was pretty much the standard.
Yeah, but you said, I hope not. And sure enough, it worked out exactly like I said it would. They eliminated everybody and and only cared about the final 4.
No, you totally called it. It's pretty much cut and dry that they were only going to leave the important ones at the end. I just think that they had the wrong ones, but what do I know?
This match was awful. It's Cameron, so my expectations were set pretty low here. But she hit a victory roll, and she actually did it right. I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, Alicia Fox versus Cameron versus Natalya. This match right here is a triple threat, is a direct result from last week's SmackDown when Cameron was a special referee for Natalya versus Alicia Fox. She DDT'd them both, and now they have a triple threat. We don't really get that many triple threat divas matches, and I actually welcomed this on my TV, and it was actually a good match. The only problem that I have is, to me, they're all heels. I don't care if Natalya was portrayed as a face. She's a heel. She's with Cesaro and Tyson Kidd, and when she's with them, she acts like a heel. You can't be a heel in one segment, be a babyface in a match, and then be a heel in the main event.
I guess you could argue that Fox technically isn't babyface or heel. She's just somewhere in between.
Well, yeah, she's always been like that, but she's been able to flip back and forth and this is in no disrespect to her, but she hasn't had much of a role as of lately, so no one really pays attention if she's a face or a heel. So she can toe the line, so to speak. But Natalya has had more TV time, especially in the main event, which we're going to get to. She acts like a heel, almost. And even in the beginning segment, when Cena and Daniel Bryan had issued a challenge to Cesaro and Kidd, Natalya is the one that stepped up and said, "You're on."
Yeah, it seems to be like they continue the thing that I complain about going into Mania, where they're still not quite sure whether they want her to be heel or babyface. Because there's times where she acts like a heel, and there's times where she acts like a babyface. And, during this match, she acted more like a babyface. Prior interactions backstage with these 3, she's acted more like a babyface than a heel. Very incoherent storytelling, at least on Natty's part. And I can't wait to give you a theory once we get to the main event and see what you think about where I think they're going with Natty.
Well, let's talk about the main event, since we've already discussed... Actually, hold on. Before we get to the main event, there's one more thing we need to discuss. Big Show.
Okay.
We learned that...
Cameron won.
Big Show... yeah, Cameron won the Divas match. Big Show had come out to the ring to talk about beating down Roman Reigns on Raw. He was proud of his work, proud of the dents that he put in the taxi cab, and basically says that the Authority granted him a last man standing match against Roman Reigns at Extreme Rules. There. Got that said, done, out of the way.
And then Roman had a response promo that was very weird and short and choppy, and I didn't understand that one at all.
Well, that's because the full interview is on WWE.com, so they didn't air
Well, SmackDown's edited. They could have done a little bit of a better job, like editing this interview together, because it felt like it was heavily edited. It felt clipped. It felt short. It felt all the things that, you would hope that maybe WWE with their, production values could kind of fix. Which, speaking of production values, so I can't wait to get to the main event. So, coming into SmackDown, I think everybody was kind of curious, Nikolai, about probably the second biggest piece of news this week, which is WWE fans got a little carried away during the taping of the SmackDown, four of them decided to jump into the ring. Two of them pretty much got ensconced by guards pretty much instantly, but two other guys, while the security guards were distracted with the other two, managed to get a performer rock bottom dead center in the ring. The guy who hit the rock bottom then climbed up on the ropes, posed like The Rock, jumped down, and ran into the crowd. And everybody who stuck around was basically arrested, and I'm sure they eventually tracked that guy down too. But, and then kind of Cena was just kind of like, what just happened? And everybody was kind of weird. So everybody's seen the video prior going into the SmackDown, but I think a lot of people wanted to see how they would edit the match. Did you see this video prior to seeing this match?
I did see the video, and I actually replayed it a couple of times just because I couldn't believe what I saw. I still couldn't believe that two guys actually got to perform the rock bottom in the middle of the ring during a live taping. It's just unbelievable.
I mean, it's crazy. So, if you watched the match, you know it happened with John Cena and Tyson Kidd in the ring at the time of the interference from the fans. So everybody was kind of watching for this to happen. So when Cesaro and Tyson Kidd's music hit, I kind of sat up and wrapped attention, looking for the edit. Tyson Kidd and Cesaro were on the apron, holding up the belts, all stuff that I've seen from the video. So then Cena and Kidd start to match off, and then all randomly, Kidd goes from being in the ring to Cesaro being in the ring. And that was the edit. I mean, it wasn't super noticeable. Like, if you hadn't heard about the event, hadn't seen the tape, I don't think you would have noticed the cut. You just would assume that maybe Cesaro made a tag off screen. But, I mean, to me, because I had seen the video and I knew roughly when it took place, it was pretty noticeable for me. How about you?
Well, I saw something different than you. What I heard, or what I read, was that the fan interference came before the match started. And as I was watching the video, you could clearly see Kidd and Cesaro, as you were describing. They held up the title belts. Kidd took off his headphones and his jacket. And then all of a sudden, you see a shot of John Cena smiling. Then you get a shot of Kidd and Cesaro acting normal, which was the edit. Then you go back to Cena and Daniel Bryan, and they're laughing. And it was right before Cena and Kidd had locked up. So
it's possible that
that's where I saw the edit, because when you go back and as the bell rings, you see John Cena smiling, because the first clip of him smiling was him watching these guys in the ring doing the rock bottom, and then after, Cena's clapping, looking into the crowd, and Daniel Bryan has a smile on his face as well. So I think right there is where it happened. It was right before the match before John Cena and Kidd had locked up first.
What made me think it was the way that I saw it was just that I didn't see his Kidd tag out. And it seemed like it jumped a little bit there for me. But now that you say it like that, I think you're right. Like, if I could try to recall the video and think of right when they came in, I think it was like right before Tyson Kidd and Cena tied up to start this match off. It was like right after the entrances, like right after Kidd and Cesaro entered the ring. Because like everybody was just kind of standing in like gobsmacked awe that like four people got into the ring at once.
It's pretty strange and incredible at the same time that
We've seen one make it to like the ring. You know, one time in particular, Eddie Guerrero during a ladder match, a fan jumped into the ring and tipped the ladder over, and Eddie Guerrero pretty much absolutely exploded his face, and the security guard like picked his poor dead lifeless carcass up and arrested him. Another time, Vince McMahon was cutting a promo sometime a little bit after the real hot Austin McMahon days, and somebody tried to climb into the ring while he was cutting the promo, and mid-promo, just Vince McMahon, like the security guy, caught him trying to get into the ring, but the guy had like latched onto the rope, so Vince McMahon came over and started kicking him in the face as hard as he could to get him to let go of the ropes. And there's a couple other instances that I could go into, but this is the first time where it felt like a mini riot broke out until you saw that they had lighthearted intentions in mind and just did actually a decent, you know, for fans, a decent rock bottom. But still, I would not recommend fans to do this because you will go to jail, and it's really not something you should do.
It's not worth it, really. I mean, it's fun for the experience. If you want to do that in you know, an indie show. If you know, get in touch with the wrestlers, ask them if you can get in the ring or something.
I would never recommend anybody to get in the ring on the indie show, because there will be some asshole those wrestler that will just absolutely obliterate your face, because you have to keep in mind, like, while WWE's like kind of in the modern times, you have to keep in mind that a lot of the indies, like especially small time indies, it's like it's back in time. It's like the 80s. And like a lot of like the old school rules are still technically in place.
Well, no. I'm not talking about rushing the ring. I'm strictly talking about, from experience, I've been to New England Championship Wrestling, NECW. I've been to their tapings and some of their live shows, and they'll have intermissions and have a wrestler will come out and take pictures. One time I brought my nephew, and I sat him on the ring apron, and he got a picture in the ring. So, you know, another time I was with a friend and their kids, and they were allowed to go in the ring and run around. You know, it's all depending on what show you're going to, and if there's an intermission or if there's a signing or something. I mean, I got my picture taken with, indie wrestler Alexis Nevaeh. I've even got my picture taken with Colt Cabana, you know, signing something for me, and took a picture with him as well.
Usually the main draw will get, it's like courtesy to give the main draw the ring so he could sell his Polaroids to fans.
And I mean, like I said, I've been to NECW before with a friend, and Mike Bennett, who's Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion. He's doing his thing there. He was a part of the indie show that I was at, and he allowed one of my friends, you know, a couple of kids in the ring and have a little bit of fun. So, I mean, it all depends on what type of show you go into and the environment. If it's, you know, obviously you don't want it to be a hostile one. You don't ever rush the ring unannounced or uninvited.
But like, besides that newsworthy event and trying to catch where the edit was, the match itself was pretty good. It's just kind of heartbreaking to think that this might be the last we see of Bryan for at least a week or two. And then who knows after that.
I'd like to think of it as Daniel Bryan getting some rest, because he's not doing the rest of the tour. He's home, he's convalescing, he doesn't have to wrestle, I mean, as much as I'm sure he wants to. He doesn't have to aggravate the neck. I mean, he has up until Monday to relax the neck and everything and do all that he can do. With this match itself, it was a good match. It was a little short for my likings for the main event, and they were booking this as an all-champions tag team main event, which is what I put the title in the recap. The Intercontinental Champion and the United States Champion versus the tag team champions in a non-title match. Now, how do you have the tag team champions lose to Randy Orton on Raw by himself, and they lose to Bryan and Cena on SmackDown? It's just a bad look for the tag team champions right now.
Well, yeah, we're out of Mania season, so I guess the tag champs are regulated back to this spot that they were in prior to the build-up to Mania. So apparently WWE learned no lesson whatsoever about, some of the internet fans kind of getting their interest piqued in the tag division when they artificially paid attention to it, building up to that multi-team tag match. And they're just going to go back to old habits and kind of re-bury this whole division, I guess.
Well, regardless, this was a good match. John Cena took care of a lot of the duties in the match, especially playing face in peril, and saved Daniel Bryan for the end. Gets the hot tag, runs wild on Kid and Cesaro, Natalya got on the apron, and she got knocked down. Cesaro caught her. Bryan put Kid in the yes lock. John Cena hit Cesaro with the attitude adjustment. Kid taps out. Boom, babyfaces win. And that's the end of SmackDown.
So, Nikolai, you want to hear my theory about this?
Sure,
they're going to do a love triangle storyline between Kid, Cesaro, and Natalya.
I'm afraid of that, because when Cesaro caught her, I was expecting Kid to kind of give him a glare, but that didn't happen, so I'm hoping it doesn't go that way.
I have one of those bad feelings, Nikolai, and I have a history of every once in a while getting one of these weird random predictions right, and just the way he caught her, and just the way that she was looking at him, I just have a bad feeling that that's where they're headed here. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but I'm saying that I think they're going to kind of start to tease that there's like some kind of love triangle going on here.
And I have a bad feeling it will happen because you said it, Rob, because we all know that the WWE listens to the SmackDown Rundown, which is why some of those predictions have been correct. I've had some of those happen to me myself, and I swear WWE has spies out there. They listen to the SmackDown Rundown, so please, I hope they don't hear that part.
I mean, if you're going to break up a team, I guess it's kind of somewhat interesting.
No, it's somewhat cliche-ic.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's better than just having Cesaro or Kid attack one another randomly.
Which is also cliche-ic.
The only thing that I'm kind of interested about this is, as far as the thing is like the past history of quote-unquote on-screen love relationships kind of carrying over into the real world. I feel like Daddy and Tyson Kidd are playing with fire here.
Well, if anything that Total Divas has taught us is that by the end of the last season that they kind of reconciled just ever so slightly, that maybe they're actually getting along. But I like their on-screen characters, definitely.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but there is kind of an established thing, of on-screen romances turning into real-life romances a lot in wrestling history. But hopefully I'm wrong about this prediction, but man, when they did that spot and I saw how long he held her, just so that the cameras could catch that he caught her like that, I was like, man, this better not do this storyline.
Well, the funny thing is Cesaro kind of dropped her or tossed her aside to try and save Kid from tapping out. Which
yeah, I mean, so maybe I could be seeing a little too much that's not there, but I don't know, man. I got bad feelings when I saw that spot. When Naomi turned on Paige, did you think that she was a little reckless with her attack on Paige?
Well, apparently she was supposed to be reckless because they want to make it look like Paige really got destroyed, because I think that, well, Michael Cole made the announcement during the show that doctors, let me quote unquote, doctors have advised Paige to not compete for the time being.
So she can film her stupid Christmas movie. But
so she can go take some time off, right, yes.
But there's this one part where, during the attack, where she had slammed her into the wall a couple times on her back, which was fine. But there was one time where she kind of grabbed her around, up by her neck, and the other arm kind of, went down to her lower back, and she pretty much threw her head first into the wall. I was just like, ow!
Well, I think it's because aggressive Naomi is something we're not used to seeing, and maybe something she's not used to being.
Yeah, I think she got a little bit carried away on that one. Or maybe Paige knew like they were doing this to her, and maybe she was like, hey, you gotta at least make one of these look real good.
Or maybe Paige just knows how to sell.
Nah, man, I saw the head connect to the wall, and I was just like, that probably could not have felt too great. But
Well,
I was just curious.
I'd like to think that the English have a much more tolerable way of getting hit, because you look at William Regal, you look at Wade Barrett. I'd like to put Paige in that category of she knows how to take a hit. I mean, just look at Sheamus, look at Finlay. They know how to powder each other. They know how to hit each other.
Yeah,
Speaking of, and I mentioned Sheamus, that kick that Neville gave to him, it was an enziguri or whatever in the corner, smacked Sheamus right in the back of the head. I mean, that you heard that one.
Oh yeah. Luckily for Sheamus, Neville wears kick pads, but that still does not feel good.
Yeah. All in all, I think SmackDown was decent. Not the best show in the UK that I've seen for the entire week of WWE television, but at least we had a couple of new matches announced for Extreme Rules, albeit they're two really dumb ones.
Yeah, but I mean, in comparison to the past couple of weeks after like Mania, where they weren't really leading up to anything, and SmackDown was only like 4 matches, and they were pretty much meaningless. I'm much happier, kind of back to the format of SmackDown, at least establishing one of the pay-per-view matches on it. At least one. That was just what they did going into Mania. They would set up whatever matches Raw couldn't get to, and SmackDown at least set up the Sheamus Dolph match, and at least solidified the show and Reigns match, which we're probably going to see. So at least we're back to SmackDown, at least, setting up a pay-per-view again, where the past couple of weeks there really wasn't much reason to watch SmackDown other than to watch wrestling.
That's where I can agree. I mean, this episode had more to do with the upcoming pay-per-view than last week, so we got 2 new matches announced.
Do you think that will change when SmackDown goes to USA?
No, because I think it's going to be the same. It's no matter what.
Really? Because a lot of people seem to be feeling like WWE for whatever. I'm not sure why they're jumping to this conclusion. I'm not sure if they're hearing things or whatever, but a lot of people seem to think that the brand split is a possibility, or at least that they're going to have to refocus their energy on SmackDown.
Well, SmackDown is usually the better show, so if they put more energy into SmackDown, I'm not complaining. It gives us a better show to talk about.
Yeah, I was just curious, because I know we forgot to talk about the move from Sci-Fi to USA, coming up. Like when was it? When it technically hasn't been announced yet.
No, it hasn't been announced, but it's going to happen in January. Much like how SmackDown moved to Thursday nights in January earlier this year, SmackDown's moving from Sci-Fi to USA. So now WWE is going to be under one channel, one umbrella, which is the USA Network. And I think it makes sense because you can promote both shows on one channel. Sci-Fi, I don't think Sci-Fi is really getting the ratings that they really want, even though it's the highest on the Thursday night or Friday night, whatever their touting was. But I just think it makes sense to be on one channel.
But here's my question: when they moved from Friday to Thursday, the ratings went down, right? And they haven't really quite hit back up to pre-move yet, as of yet, right?
Honestly, I haven't really paid much attention to the ratings.
Okay. So I'm sorry to put you in that spot, but
it's no big deal. I just haven't. I haven't had the time to check. I mean, I've read a couple of articles and everything, and I've seen the listing of it, but for some reason the information hasn't retained in my brain.
I believe they haven't quite gotten back. Like, it's not as bad as it was when they initially moved, but hasn't quite got back to its peak. So where I'm going with that is when they move it to USA, aren't they going to lose another group of viewers till they find it again?
I don't think so, because a lot more people watch USA than they watch Sci-Fi. USA Network has a lot more TV shows that people watch.
Or at least you could say USA's, when you think of USA, you think of the crazy, weird character shows, and you think wrestling, whereas Sci-Fi, you just think of B, C, D level sci-fi movies.
Right, and television shows. But I mean, USA, you've had shows like Burn Notice and Growing Pains and Psych and Law and Order reruns and CSI.
And the show that started it all, Monk.
That's right. I mean, all these shows have been USA, so USA is a top network channel. I think they'll get better.
I kind of looking forward to it, but like if they did do a brand split, that would all of a sudden make SmackDown RunDown like really, really important. Not that we're not now, but like we would get, I'm assuming, at least the World Heavyweight title back and probably a secondary belt to talk about. And instead of maybe just getting developing feuds that maybe Raw hasn't gotten around to yet, and kind of feeding those storylines in, we would get like actual, real, like pretty important storylines again.
Maybe. I mean, time will tell. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I don't really see the brand split ever happening again. I just feel like maybe they might try to, make Cena appear and a couple others appear more often on SmackDown than they currently do.
Which would be fine by me. But other than that, I have nothing else to add for SmackDown RunDown.
I liked the show when I was watching it, but then when I read through the notes and kind of where some of the questionable booking and stuff like that, upon second thought, the show was like a C-.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to use my thumbs, I'd say thumbs up for pay-per-view advancement, thumbs in the middle for entertainment purposes, even though I don't usually go by that based system, but that's what I can compare it to.
Yeah, I mean, they did, like we did mention that they did at least go back to setting up some of the not finished storylines from Raw to kind of go into Extreme Rules, which is nice.
Indeed. Rob, do you have any last words before we close out the show?
No, I have no rant of the week this week. Nobody pissed me off as of yet, but I'm sure somebody eventually will do that again.
All right, well, Monday Night Raw, what we have to look forward to is the Authority will be back on television, and Triple H will have a special announcement about the return of Tough Enough, which will air on WWE Network. And which, by the way, is free this month for new subscribers. If you don't already have it, I don't know why. If you're a fan of WWE and you don't have it, I don't know why. Either way.
The only one we know, the only coach I know of is Jericho. And I don't think anybody else has been announced yet. Have they?
Jericho has only been internet rumors, and Jericho loves to troll the internet, and we never know for sure unless you actually see him. But I've heard that myself.
So, I mean, I'm kind of interested to see who the coaches would be, because the last season was Stone Cold, Trish, Bill DeMott, and Booker.
Right.
Obviously, Bill DeMott's no longer with WWE. Booker T's announcing. Trish Stratus is off doing yoga. And Stone Cold is off doing Broken Skull Ranch and may or may not have heat with WWE. So,
well, apparently he doesn't have heat, and he was talked into doing the Tough Enough show, but he had contractual obligations for Broken Skull Ranch, the Redneck Challenge and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I'm assuming that they'll probably at least have one female as a coach, and then it would be kind of interesting to see the breakdown of the rest of the coaches and see how many coaches they will have, and see and that would be cool. I mean, she's not doing anything else with her life, so might as well. and kind of be interested to see the level of people who they bring in for this, because I'm assuming whoever wins gets an NXT contract. So I'm assuming it's going to be maybe a little bit more well-known people than some of the people that we've seen in the past couple seasons of Tough Enough, where like they go and find people who maybe are just kind of getting their feet wet in the indie scene, where I think like maybe potentially this year it might be people who are maybe 5 years deep and maybe have a little bit of a name on the indie scene, but not like super huge, like where they're super indie guys.
I hope I don't get any more stale duds like Silent Rage.
Oh my god! I think when you really take a look at the winners of Tough Enough, he has to go down as the worst winner ever, right?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, when Cameron beats you as far as like success of a career, you know you're in some trouble.
Oh yeah, and I had hope for a couple of others, but I want to save that conversation for another time. And I think it's time that we close out the show for the night and save that more Tough Enough talk for after Triple H's announcement.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got a little sidetracked there.
Like I said, decent episode of SmackDown. Raw totally bored the hell out of me, so obviously SmackDown was better, as usual. Monday Night Raw, Tough Enough announcement, and back to the States. The Authority's back. Let's find out what happens with Seth Rollins and Orton and everybody else. And Biz versus Ms. Dow for the Miz name, brand, whatever. Let me know if you care about it. Hit up Rob on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter. Rob, give out that handle one more time.
At Rob the Many.
And at Nikolai, you can reach us on Twitter. Reach AngryMarks on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and of course AngryMarks.com for everything mixed martial arts and wrestling related. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the SmackDown Rundown. For Rob the Many, for producer Killer Kev, this is Nikolai telling you, talk to you next time.